All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports and Knowledge podcast. Well, Jimmy Butler sort of got his wish because he is no longer a member of the Miami Heat. As yesterday we saw the Heat agree to trade Butler to the Golden State Warriors as part of a four-team deal that also included the Utah Jazz and the Detroit Pistons. But the highlight of this deal, of course, is Butler going to the Warriors and Andrew Wiggins going to Miami. And this ends a tumultuous 8 months of the simmering bad blood between Butler and the Heat's front office. Now, make no mistake about it, because when Butler was on top of his game, he put Miami on his back and led them to a pair of Eastern Conference championships. But you knew after Pat Riley's comments last summer, which were preceded by Butler's comments on how things would have been if he was on the floor when the Heat lost to the Celtics last year in round one of the NBA playoffs, that it was going to hit the fan at some point between player and team. We've seen it this season for the Heat. Of course, Miami recently has suspended Butler on three separate occasions, and I've talked about it before. You got the old school Pat Riley against the new school Jimmy Butler, and now that Butler is with Golden State, and of course, the Heat are still the Heat. Everyone can go forward, okay? Because the Heat have the guys on their team who they feel will be committed to basketball in the way that they want them to be, while Butler once again looks to regain his smile and his joy for the game of basketball, this time now in the city of San Francisco. So, from the Warriors aspect, how will things work out for Butler playing with Steph Curry and Draymond Green and others? For me, it's very interesting because I look at Jimmy Butler's style of play, and darn good player. I just don't see him fitting with the Golden State Warriors with how they do things. Maybe I'll be wrong. Okay, but I just don't see it meshing. Then I think for me, from a standpoint for the Golden State Warriors, I think this is a last ditch effort for them to try to go out there and remain relevant. We've seen the Warriors go out there and attempt to make several moves before this year's trade deadline, before they were able to get Butler. We saw the Golden State Warriors start off with that strong start to the season, but they entered play today with a record of 25-25. And now, of course, they're in the process of taking on the Los Angeles Lakers as we speak. But you look at things, and Golden State's right there. They're currently tied for Phoenix with the last spot in the play-in, but nonetheless, the Warriors, in my opinion, have their work cut out for them if they are going to be a postseason team. There's really no cupcake, or no free lunch, if you will, in the Western Conference this year. You look at some of the top teams. You got OKC, you got Memphis, you got Houston, you got Denver. The Lakers have improved. The Clippers continue to show a lot of grit. You would expect Dallas to take a step up after the acquisition of Anthony Davis. The Sacramento Kings, maybe they take a step back. You got the Suns and the Timberwolves right there as well. And the Spurs, who just got De'Aaron Fox, they are right there nipping at the heels of the Warriors. So it is not basically cut and dry that Golden State, with the addition of Jimmy Butler, is going to be a playoff team. So I look at it like this, and I've talked about it before with the Golden State Warriors. What made them successful when they were winning those championships? Um, I think their best days of that are behind them because, you know, Steph Curry, no doubt about it, one of, if not the best 3-point shooter of all time. We've seen Clay Thompson move on. A lot of those guys from those teams are gone. But then on top of that, I feel like the league as a whole has caught up to the Golden State Warriors, but yet and still the Warriors still go out there and try to win the way that they did before. And it ain't happening. I mean, they still go out there, they're attempting more than 43-point shots a game. And to me, for my money, it simply is not working. But we did see Butler as far as it goes. He did agree to an extension with Golden State. That was a holdup in things because there was a lot of speculation and he only wanted to go to Phoenix, and Phoenix couldn't make the deal happen. But nonetheless, you have to wonder at the age of 36, is this going to be the last team that the well traveled Butler has played for? Of course, started his career with the Chicago Bulls, had success there before he was traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Then from there to the Sixers, and then of course the Miami Heat. And I think, in my opinion, Jimmy Butler had his biggest success in a Miami Heat uniform. This possibly could be the end of the line for his NBA career. We're talking about Jimmy Butler, phenomenal player, multiple time All Star. He's a guy who he's willing to do all of the dirty stuff in order to win. And then on top of that, what he has brought throughout his NBA career at the defensive end of the floor. And that's been a big reason why Miami got to the NBA Finals twice with Butler leading the way. So you look at it on the flip side of this, of course, Andrew Wiggins going to Miami. It's really hard to believe it. Wiggins has been in the league for about 10 years now. Of course, he had his most success when coming to the Golden State Warriors, of course, a lot part of that last championship team. And now, if you're Wiggins, you're basically going to be the guy, at least for right now, in Miami. And I want to see how Andrew Wiggins is able to fit into that quote unquote Heat culture. That's going to be a big thing for me. Clearly, the Heat feel like he can, give them some contributions, or else they wouldn't have gone out there and made this deal. Also, Miami picked up PJ Tucker, Kyle Anderson, and a first round pick this year from the Golden State Warriors, which is top 10 protected. And I think out of all of the assets that I just mentioned, the first round pick is probably going to be the most intriguing thing for the Miami Heat going forward. Dennis Schroeder is on the road again. This time he got traded to Utah. Started the year with the Nets, and it's just been, constant moving for that young man. Josh Richardson and Lindy Waters III are going to Detroit. But like I said, everybody can finally move on as far as the Miami Heat go and their disgruntled star. And I think cooler heads finally prevailed. The Heat, made a deal which they felt was best. And also, they're sending Jimmy Butler someplace that he wants to be. Might not be Phoenix, but still, it ain't Miami where he simply was not happy. So I look back at it and I think, short term, are there some hurt feelings between Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat? I absolutely do feel that way. But I think at the end of the day, he will and he should be remembered as one of the greatest players in Heat franchise history. I mean, those playoff runs that the Miami Heat had with Jimmy Butler leading the way were real because when Jimmy was on top of his game, especially at the defensive end of the floor, and I've talked about this for the last couple of years, when it came to the postseason, he basically punked people. He took their lunch money. We saw it happen in the bubble back in 2020, and we saw it happen a couple of years ago when he got the Heat to the finals once again. Jimmy just basically went out there and took people's lunch money. Okay, that's I called him the gooch. For how he went out there and did things, and I think the Heat organization, I think the Heat fans should respect him for that. Also, is the Heat culture, if you will, played out? Because I think Jimmy Butler was a guy from the way that he played. He fits how the Miami Heat did things. And, another former Marquette star, of course, the greatest player in Heat franchise history, Dwayne Wade. And, especially under two former head coaches at Marquette, Tom Crean and Buzz Williams. Those guys that came to the NBA that played under those two respective head coaches when they were at Marquette, all of those guys came into the NBA with a chip on their shoulders because, for the most part, the Marquette guys were overlooked coming out of high school. They played that way in college, and they brought that same attitude to the NBA. And I think that is why Jimmy Butler fit there. But nonetheless, it's one of those where when you think about Pat Riley, who is a Heat team president, you think about, the fancy suits, the slick back hair, it's Miami. You think about his time with the Lakers. But I think the the time with Pat Riley that he was with the Knicks, I think that was more closer to what he is. He's a tough nosed, hard nosed, defensive minded head coach who believes in hard work. And it's that hard work ethic that Pat Riley is not going to give up on, even in the face of the new NBA. And Pat Riley is old school to the core. He feels like this: if he could curse out the likes of Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and they took it, and he made them work their tails off, and they bought in to what he was selling, then everybody else should fall in line. And Pat Riley, at the end of the day, is not going to change who he is. Okay, we're talking about a guy that won 4 NBA championships as a head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. Excuse me, got the New York Knicks within an eyelash of a championship in 1994. As a head coach, got the Miami Heat to their first NBA championship, and running their front office led them to 2 more NBA championships and a total of 6 finals appearances. So at the end of the day, he simply ain't changing who he is. On the flip side, I really want to see how this works out for Butler and Golden State. I'm not holding out hope. I'm not saying, oh, the Warriors are championship contenders, because they simply are not. But I just would like to sit back and see how Butler, um, fits into things. So at this point, if you ask me who won the trade, I'm going to say Miami, from the standpoint that, yes, they got rid of a disgruntled Butler and they got assets back. And I think that's very important, because they were staring at a real possibility of continuing to have Butler around. He's frustrated. He's an unhappy camper. And then at the end of the season, he was going to leave regardless. And you weren't going to get anything in return. Now, if you are Miami, you have an opportunity to go forward. Yes, Butler gets a fresh start with the Golden State Warriors, but again, like I said, I am not optimistic that these veterans can go out there and have what it takes, not only to do damage in the playoffs, just get out of the play-in. I'm really not too optimistic at this point. But in a trade deadline season that saw, a lot of interesting and surprising moves leading up to the deadline earlier today, and a lot of stars on the move. Jimmy Butler has a new opportunity with the Golden State Warriors, and let's see if he's able to make the most of it. But, folks, that is going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank each and every one of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the Sports Discussion Group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out, drop a line, and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.